right, let's start this review of tarot off with a tarot card reading. Sure, we'll try this. Let's see. We've got Judgment and the Fool, Upside Down Fool. Oh, that's probably not good. We've got the Hanged Man and I'm going to turn that one around. Death. All right, let's see. I'm going to judge tarot. You'd be a fool not to hang around. I don't really know what death is, but don't turn it off. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Past. I'm here to talk to you about Tarot, which came to theaters on May 3rd, 2024. It is a new horror film by Screen Gems that has a group of college kids maybe delving into something they might not want to with horrible results. It's a horror movie. What do you expect? My hot take is I think you should watch it later. It's fine. It's a formulaic film. It has a really nice theme and a really good opening, but it also has some okay writing, some poor decisions, and kind of a convenient ending. It kind of becomes like a Final Destination type movie. So it's entertaining enough, but I'd wait for it to come to like streaming or digital. So all that being said, I'm going to tell you a little about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there'll be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't want to know what happens in this movie, and you might not, there are some surprises along the way, even though I said it's formulaic. Then I would turn it off when I get to the ending section. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free. I'll let you know when I get to the spoilers. So, like I said, in Tarot, you have a group of college friends, 7 college friends. They're out celebrating one of their birthdays when they decide to go snooping around the Airbnb house that they are staying in, looking for additional booze. But what they find is something far scarier. They find an old deck of tarot cards. And they decide to like read each other's fortunes, I guess. They didn't call it fortunes. They read each other's horoscopes with the tarot cards. Does this go well for them? Does this end horribly for them? Well, I think you can imagine how it ends, but you'll have to watch the movie to find out. So, all that being said, things I loved about this movie. The first, I really like the intro. It's a nice intro. It's kind of silly. It's, you know, these college kids are staying in this like giant, decrepit old mansion. Sure. And then they find this tarot card deck, but it does a nice job of like getting you used to the characters. And the tarot readings are actually pretty fun because it does give you like a preview of what is going to happen. So you can kind of like start to think about what will happen to these characters. The second thing I liked the practical effects. This film had like a mix of practical effects and computer generated effects. The computer generated effects were okay. I mean, they were better than a lot of horror films, but when the film had practical effects, they looked really good. There were some fairly creepy characters that they had in like makeup and whatnot. There's a decent amount of blood, not a ton of blood actually, but a decent amount of blood. So I did like that the film had practical effects, and when it used the practical effects, they looked really good. The CG was okay. It wasn't terrible. It was okay, and it didn't really break your suspension as much, but when it went on the practical side, it was much better. And the last thing I loved, look, I love the theme. It is a fun premise. I like how they really lean into like astrology and the tarot cards and like what your sign is, and they kind of go out throughout the movie. I mean, you'd expect that. The movie's called Tarot, but they really dig into it. The characters, you find out all the characters' astrological sign, and then they reference that throughout, like, oh, I'm a Taurus, that means I'm bullhead, things like that. It is a fun theme that they were able to carry throughout the whole film. It's not just something like at the start, it carries throughout the movie. So, all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, there's some okay writing. It's not great writing. There's some pretty kind of obvious lines that get said, and then some pretty quick, rash decisions. I wish it was a little bit more layered, a little more nuanced, but it's a horror movie. You kind of get that sometimes. The second thing I didn't love, related to a horror movie, you get some pretty poor decisions. Like these characters literally have their fate read to them in their tarot reading. They know what should happen, and they do it anyways. It's a horror movie again. You're gonna get bad decisions, but it was a little frustrating when you're like, I know exactly what's gonna happen, and then it would happen. And the last thing I didn't love as much, it has kind of a convenient ending. The ending, it has this big build up, like a very Final Destination kind of build up, and then it all kind of comes together at the end fairly quickly, fairly conveniently. I'm not going to go into it now. I'll go into it in the ending section, but it didn't wrap up as well as I kind of expected from the really good opening. So well, that being said, Tarot is coming to theaters on May 3rd, 2024. Like I said, I think you should watch it later. Wait for it to come to streaming, wait for it to come to digital. But, if you do check it out, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. Let me know what I got right and wrong. I would love to hear it. And I'm going to go into the ending right now. So if you don't know what happened to this movie, and again, you might not, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So in Tarot, you have a group of 7 friends. They're going out for one of their friends' birthdays. It's Elise. It's her birthday. They all rented this like mansion out in the middle of nowhere. They're hanging out, they're having fun. And then they run out of beer. And so they decide to go look around the mansion for alcohol that might be there. Not a good idea. You know, you're a guest. You shouldn't try to steal their booze, but you know, they're young college kids. They do it anyways. And they go into and they find this like locked private room that they go into. It leads to a basement with all this like creepy occult stuff. And you're thinking like, don't do this. This is not a good idea. And in this occult like labyrinth, essentially, like, you know, storage place with all this cool occult stuff, they find this old box of tarot cards, like really sinister looking tarot cards. And conveniently, one of the characters, Haley, knows how to read people's tarot cards, knows how to read their fortunes. And so she does a tarot reading for everyone there using these sinister cards. And even before she does it, she's like, yo, I shouldn't do this. Like, you shouldn't use someone else's deck. And they're like, oh, come on, it's my birthday. And she's like, okay, fine. So she does a tarot reading for everyone, and everyone has like a different fate. And again, like I said, I did like this scene. You got to like know the characters, and the tarot reading does basically give you kind of a roadmap of what is going to happen to them. Elise was like, you know, be careful climbing that ladder. You might, you know, slip and break something. Paige got like the Hanging Man as her card. Each character gets like a general idea of what their future will be. And they don't think they thought it was this literal, but it ends up being fairly literal. So after they do the tarot reading, they go to sleep, and the next nothing bad happens that day. Although Paxton sees like some creepy eyes outside, so you're starting to think maybe something bad will happen. But they drive home, and on the way back, they stop at the gas station, and one of the characters, Lucas, whose tarot said that his fortunes would change, wins $700 in like a lottery scratcher. So hey, his fortune changed. Things are starting to come together. No one like thinks about this being a potential problem. They just decide to keep going on their way. They go home, and when they get back, they all go back to their various, you know, houses and living situations in this college. It's weird that they're all like really, really super close friends, and they all live in separate places. Sure. And they all seem to live in very creepy places too, like really creepy places. But hey, you know what? It's a horror movie. What do you expect? Elise is the first to have something bad happen to her. She goes back to her like kind of looks like a sorority house-ish kind of thing. Um, and she's there alone. She doesn't go to a frat party because she wanted the place to herself, this creepy place to herself. And so after a bath, she comes outside, and the attic ladder is down. And she's like, oh, like that's weird. And like, what are you doing? She puts the ladder back up, goes back into her room, hears a bunch of sounds, hears some banging, goes outside, and the ladder's back down. And she's like, okay, girls, like that's a funny joke. Ha ha ha. No one laughs. She goes up into the attic, and it is dark. It is creepy. And she hears something. She looks back down outside the attic, and then she goes back up, and the attic is covered in like candles. Not a good sign for her. Something bad is happening. Then she gets like spooked by this character that looks like the high priestess. The high priestess was Elise's card. And so this like high priestess looking evil thing spooks her. She falls off the ladder, hurts herself. She was warned to like be careful climbing the ladder because she might fall and break something. Well, she did. And that is when the high priestess drags her under the ladder and starts slamming it down on her over and over. Boom, she's dead. So the day after, well, the night actually that they get back, one of their friends dies. All the friends are obviously upset about this, and no one draws this connection. They're like, oh, it's just a freak accident. Okay. So everyone's upset, but they keep going about their ways. The next night, Lucas is walking back, and he is in the subway. He's taking the T train back, and all of a sudden he sees his tarot person. He got the Hermit, which is this like hooded character with like a light. And he was warned to like not follow that, so he doesn't. He runs away, but he also decides to go into like a restricted part of the subway, and that is when darkness comes in. Lucas gets scared. He's hiding in a train, and eventually he gets spooked by the Hermit. Jumps back out of the train, apparently right into the path of another moving train. Like it just goes right by, boom, kills him. 2 dead, 2 mysterious deaths back to back. Could this be related to the tarot? Well, they finally start to think like maybe this is related to the tarot, because remember I told Elise that she should be careful climbing the ladder, and she got killed by a ladder. And I told Lucas to like not venture off the tracks or something like that, and he got killed in a train station. So There we go. And so now they start to gather the connection that maybe these tarot readings are coming true. And that makes everyone really, really scared, as you would imagine. So Haley decides to look up some info on horoscopes. And you're like, Haley, you are like a master tarot reader, a master of horoscopes. I feel like you would know this, but she just like Google's horoscopes. Like, I would assume that she would already know all this information. And she finds very conveniently, like the second person on this Google search, this person named Alma Ashton, who is apparently someone that is talking about the dangers of tarot, the dangers of like tarot readings. And so again, I expected Haley to know this person. If she is like so deep in this world, she doesn't. Alma has her phone number on the webpage. They call her phone number, it doesn't pick up, and they're like, you know what? We need to do something. The tarot readings are coming true. People are dying. We're gonna drive out to Alma tonight to see her. So they jump in the car and drive to Alma's place. Apparently, Alma's address is on her website also. Very convenient. They get to Alma's, and Alma doesn't want to see them. As you'd imagine, they get there like at super late at night, like 10 o'clock. These five kids are like banging on her door, almost like go away, as you would expect. And Haley yells like, "My friends are dying because of these readings," and that piques Alma's interest. So Alma gets them in there, and she asks, and she asks what happened. Haley says she read all of her friends' tarot readings, and now people are dying based on those readings. And Alma's like, "These cards, were they in a box?" And you're like, I mean, I think most tarot cards are probably in a box. I guess it's not like a cardboard box. Like mine came in like a card deck box, but and she's like, yes, they were. And then she asked, like, is it an old box with a Zodiac Queen painted on it? And she's like, yes. And I assume that there's a lot of tarot decks that would have this, but I don't know. I guess I'm not in this world, so I'm not sure. But Alma instantly realized that this is the deck that she has been searching for. And she tells the group about these old incidents where people died mysteriously after having their tarot cards read. And one of them, there was one in like Mexico City, there was one at Woodstock, there was one in London where a group of friends died and only one person survived. How does Alma know all of this? How does Alma know? Well, she was the one person that survived in London. She read her friends' cards, but she never read her own, so she didn't succumb to the fate. And now Alma has been searching for that deck ever since so she can stop it. So she has devoted her life to finding this evil tarot deck that now just kind of fell into her lap when these kids Google searched her and found her. And then Alma tells the background of this deck. This deck was crafted in Hungary in 1798. A count and his wife were expecting a child, and the count used this person called the astrologer, a peasant lady who would read his fortunes, and they always came true. And so he asked her to read the tarot, the fortune of his wife, and that unfortunately was not good. The reading said that the wife and the child would die, and the count got upset with her, forced her to do it again. She did it multiple times. Same fate every time, right? It's a tarot reading. It should be the same fate. And so the count got frustrated with her, cast her out. The astrologer and her child left the village, but then later the count's wife gave birth, but they both died in childbirth. And the count, thinking that the astrologer had like cast a witchcraft spell on his wife, goes out and hunts down the astrologer. He doesn't get the astrologer, but they get the astrologer's daughter. They kill the astrologer's daughter. This obviously upsets the astrologer, this powerful tarot reading astrologer. And so she gets her revenge by crafting this evil, twisted tarot deck and like infusing her own soul into it. She does this ritual where she does a reading for the count and his close family members to twisted, kill them essentially. And then she kills herself, drains her blood, infuses her soul into these cards. And that makes these readings come true. And so now the astrologer is like bound to this deck. When someone reads someone's tarot with this deck, the astrologer's soul like manifests and makes it happen. And so that is why you are seeing the card reading fates come to life and kill people. All right. So the friends reasonably ask, like, how do we stop this? And Alma's like, you have to destroy the deck. Maybe that can change their fate. And so now they have to go find the deck. So they leave Alma's, they have a new mission, they gotta go get the deck, but on the drive back, the car has problems and it stops on this bridge. And one of them, I think Madeline, she sees something in her window like a hanged man, like a hangman game with the letters run under it. So her tarot literally said, don't run, don't run. What does she do? She gets out and she runs away from her friends, away from the safety, into the darkness. Not a smart move. Haley runs after her. Also not a smart move, but at least Haley's fate wasn't, don't run. Madeline runs. There's something on the bridge above her. You see like a noose. It like attacks the car briefly for some reason, and then like leaves and goes after Madeline with a noose. Madeline's running, and then boom, she gets caught in the noose. She doesn't know what to do, and that's when the noose gets like thrust up, and Madeline gets hung. Again, she shouldn't have run. Her fate said, don't run. And what does she do? She runs. So now we have four left. We've got Paxton, we've got Paige, we've got Haley, and we've got Grant. So now that they are dropping like flies, they are even more determined to go back to the house and find that deck. So they decide to go. But Paxton is like, no, I'm not going back there. Well, why you wouldn't? Like, that doesn't seem like a smart decision to like split up. But he says, no, I'm not going back there. Like that is, in true crime, you don't go back to the scene of the crime or something like that. He announces that it's true crime because he is a big true crime person. And so he's like, he's going to go back to his room and wait for it to blow over. I was like, why would you make that decision? Like, why would you go back to your room alone when you've got your friends here? You should just stay with your friends. He doesn't. He decides to go back to his room, and the other three continue on to the house. And you're like, okay, Paxton is probably dead now. And you know what? You would probably be right there. As he goes back to his house, his card was the Fool. And as he goes back to his apartment, he sees a like jester-looking creepy creature that is like moving weird and bending over. And Paxton gets scared. He runs into his apartment. I don't know why he doesn't just stay there, but he gets really scared. He goes for the elevator, gets in the elevator as he starts hearing creepy things. The elevator starts going up. And he's like, okay, I'll be fine. He's probably not going to be fine. So he gets to the elevator. The elevator gets to the top of the building, floor 5. Well, when it opens, it is dark. It is creepy. I think there's like red light, and the Fool is there. And so Paxton keeps trying to like get out of there, but the buttons change into like weird Fool symbols, and the elevator doors just keep opening and closing. And as they open, like the Fool does something weird each time. And eventually the Fool approaches his elevator, and it has this like weird, like clearly CG effect on its face where it like changes really quickly from different expressions. It's okay. I mean, the Fool was fairly creepy, but it was, I think they used a little bit too much CG on this part specifically. So eventually the Fool comes into the elevator. Paxton screams, not good for Paxton. And I was like, this doesn't seem like, at least the other ones had some relation, at least the hermit was like leading him away, and the high priestess was like killing the ladder. I guess, be careful climbing the ladder. The Fool just like runs into the elevator. So it wasn't super creative. I expected, like, I don't know, maybe it should have tricked him. Like it should have tricked him to like go into the elevator when the elevator was not there, like use an illusion or something. I don't know. Something more creative. But no, that's not what happens. So now we have 3 left. You've got Paige, Haley, and Grant. So they get to the house, they find the deck of cards, they try to burn it. Doesn't burn. Bad magic. So they call in reserves. They call in Alma. Alma comes to perform a ritual, and you're like, okay, Alma's going to do something. She gets a ritual. She has like 12 stones to represent each of the zodiac signs, and she is doing a ritual to call the astrologer in, and she calls the astrologer in, and you're like, okay, this is going to be cool. And the astrologer just like takes her over and then like essentially kills her. Like the astrologer takes her over, forces a reading on Alma. Alma gets like, I don't know, like 6, the card that has 6 knives in the back. I don't know what that one is. Maybe betrayal. I'm not sure. And then the astrologer like pulls Alma back into the darkness. All the kids run, and Alma's body falls like from the ceiling with like 6 blades in her back. So you're like, okay, well, that's a little anticlimactic. Like you would expect Alma, she said, like, I've been preparing my whole life for this specific thing. And she just messes it up from the start. Like she doesn't do anything. She just like calls the astrologer in there and then dies. So the kids start running. Paige gets separated from Grant and Haley. Paige runs off another direction. And now it's Paige's turn to get her fate. Her fate was the magician. And so she runs into this like creepy area, she like eventually goes into the basement again. And I'm like, why would you go in the basement? Oh, she goes into the basement because she thinks she hears Haley. She thinks she hears Haley down there. And so she goes into the basement, the creepy basement, and starts going down there. And you're like, Paige, no, like Haley's probably not there. This is clearly a trap. But Paige goes anyways, and in there she finds the magician. And this is a really creative one. The magician like transports her into a like magic show, but not a good magic show, a very bad magic show. And eventually what happens is Paige goes and like hides in a trunk in the back of the magic show. I don't know why she thought she'd be able to hide there because it's literally like the only way that she went, and there's the only thing in there that she could hide in was this giant trunk. Of course, the magician's gonna know this. And so the magician takes her out on stage and tries to like start sawing her in half by like poking the saw through the box. It doesn't get her, but then the magician starts cranking the box and it starts to flatten. So before Paige could like move around, now it's going to flatten and Paige can't move around. And that's when the magician starts sawing the box in half and sawing through Paige, saws it through Paige, and now Paige is gone. Her fate was there. So now we just have Haley and Grant. Now, Haley's card was death. Not a good sign for Haley. Grant's card was the devil. Also not a good sign. I mean, none of the cards are good signs, but those seem like two very, very bad signs. So Haley and Grant are together. They're hiding, and we also find out why Haley was so interested in astrology from the start. She got into it after her mother died. Her mother died young. She got into astrology while her mother got sick from cancer, and so she would like do readings to try to figure out if her mom was gonna be okay. She always got the same fate, never changed, but she became like an expert in astrology because of that. And so she is the one that's always like, you can't change your fate. It is your fate. It is what it is. But now she thinks maybe we can change the fate. She thinks maybe they can change their fate if they do a reading on the astrologer before they die. Like she uses the tarot deck on the astrologer. Let's see what happens. Now, before Haley can do that, Grant gets pulled out of the window by the devil. Not good for him. Haley runs. She is running from death. It seems like both of them are like fighting off their demons, and the astrologer has to go back and forth between them. So it's interesting because like pulls Grant out and then like turns into death to like follow Haley and then like turns back into the devil to like hurt Grant. Haley runs and runs. Eventually, though, she gets cornered by death. And as death is approaching, Grant comes and like attacks death with a poker, like a fireplace poker, giving Haley enough time to go do a reading. But now Grant has the devil in front of him, and it is not going to end up well for Grant. Grant gets hurt and gets dragged towards a fire pit, but Haley is in there doing the astrology reading on the astrologer. She does the reading, and that causes the astrologer to come in here trying to stop her. The astrologer gets in there, grabs Haley by the throat, lifts her up, and Haley's like, I did your reading. I know you're in pain. What happened to you was horrible. I know what it's like to have someone taken from you, but staying stuck in the past isn't going to change the future. Um, and so the astrologer starts strangling Haley, which saves Grant because the astrologer's here. She's not killing Grant. So Grant is still not dead. And then Haley says, I read your cards. It's over. And she reveals that the astrologer's final card, the 13th card, was death. And so when she reveals this, the astrologer gets like hit with some sort of force. It's like this wind that swirls around her. The astrologer drops Haley. The wind like swirls around the astrologer, and like some debris is in there, and it's a really kind of anticlimactic ending because the wind just kind of swirls around her and like starts kind of like tearing her up from the wind, I guess. And it goes, and goes. And then eventually the astrologer just like blows up, and all like the tarot cards, all the tarot deck like rain down, and they're all on fire. So I definitely don't think they're gonna get their security deposit back from this house because someone got killed. Not good. A window was broken, and now there's like fire and stuff, and probably blood in this room. Haley and Grant embrace, and then they get out of there. And as they're walking back, they're like, "Do you think anyone will believe us?" And I agree. I don't think this is going to be good for them. They are the two remaining survivors. All of their friends were killed. This Airbnb they just rented has a dead body with like 6 swords in its back. Not going to be good for them, but they are optimistic. They are heading back. And as they're heading back, they are a few miles from town, and they see these lights show up and they're like, oh gosh, like, is this still happening? And the lights get closer. It's a car, and inside is Paxton. Paxton survived somehow. Like, how did you survive, Paxton? Like, you were basically dead because he pretty much was. Turns out he got very lucky, I guess, because while he was crying in the elevator that the fool was going to get him, his roommate like came and like opened the elevator door, and that caused everything to go away. So all of this could have been helped if each of the friends got like a second random friend who didn't get their tarot reading. I guess that stops the tarot readings from killing them. Again, feels very convenient that Paxton survived. I mean, it makes for like a happy ending because now there's 3 friends instead of two alive friends, but it doesn't feel like it fits the criteria. And the fool was basically there. Like, it was basically going to kill Paxton. I guess it didn't. So they get in the car, they drive back, and that is Taro. We don't know what happens to them. I guess their fate is not decided yet, but I don't think it'll end well. But you know what? At least they are alive. So that is Taro. It comes to theaters on May 3rd, 2024. Like I said, I think you should watch it later. Maybe wait for it to come to streaming or digital. But you know, if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you. And conveniently, one of the characters, Haley, knows how to read, knows how to read, knows how to read people, knows how to